right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Golfer's Journey. This is going to be part 2 of my interview with Chad Amer. If you haven't seen the video of part 1, go ahead and go to my channel and go back and watch that video. Ton of good stuff in there. Chad had all kinds of interesting and just great knowledgeable stuff about the game that I think can help anybody play better golf. But yeah, so I'm not going to waste too much time. Let's just get right into the second part of this interview. I want to talk about equipment a little bit. I feel like it's like an age-old joke. It's like, oh, I need a new driver if the driver's not working, or it's like, oh, this putter's missing instead of me. Right. How much do you think equipment actually comes into play? And then what level should somebody's game be at before they even start considering, say, golf ball fittings or club fittings and looking into, getting a set that's, made for them rather than just the hodgepodge set they're playing with in their garage?
Probably. I mean, it's pretty important in that regard. There's all the manufacturers dump a lot of money into research and development. So there is definitely something to it. Everybody that'll come to me and say, how old are these irons? Do I need new ones? I said, well, they don't expire.
Right.
But if they're not helping you, if you've got these big cavity back, quote unquote slice fixing irons that have a bunch of offset, and you hook the ball. Yeah, that's probably not the right fit, and there are other avenues that you can go to help you straighten it out. But and you can be price conscious. I understand that 100%. It's an expensive game. So,
yeah, absolutely.
But they're depending on you got some guys that'll buy new stuff every year. You got some guys that will they won't want to touch anything for a long time if it's the right fit. Your body and your swing will change throughout the years, and you just gotta, I'm not saying that you have to, but if there are benefits to, there's new technology. I don't know if it's just marketing and saying this, that, or the other. You can see some gains, but again, if you do go get fitted, even if it's just a fitting to see if anything might be better, you don't have to buy. But it could be in that regards, and if you get some gains, if it's not better, don't put it in play. But if it is, you could certainly help yourself in that regard.
So you think 15, 16 handicap guys, it's still okay to go get fit. It's still fine.
Absolutely.
If you think better equipment will help.
Correct.
Go check it out.
A lot of fittings turn into lessons in that regard. It's kind of it's not a one-to-one correlation, but they'll mesh. Because we'll work on some stuff while we're trying to do this. A 15 handicap, he's probably shooting in the high 80s, which means he can make a par or two here and there. Right. And he can make some big numbers in that regard. So I would say if your swing is consistent enough that you can go and put a relatively consistent swing on the ball, then, and you're a big slicer, then, there's something out there that, you'll work on your swing path a little bit in that regards, but you'll also be able to find a driver that's not hooked,
right?
That kind of thing. There's ways to buy equipment that will aid what you've got while you're working on it. But if you've got if you are a 20 handicap that hooks 2 and then slices the third, and then hooks 1, slices 2 more, and there's just no consistency there, then I would say work on getting a consistent move, and then move into a fitting. But you could get some benefits either way.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that answer will make a lot of guys happy, and a few guys hurt their feelings. So let's talk about course management. So not necessarily the pros. I think we all understand. It's the pro guys, they got their caddies are out there walking the course a few days before. They're going over the yardage book. They're game planning basically. How much are those lower digit guys? They're just the amateurs and stuff. How much game planning and course management is really going into their rounds versus just that's their skill level and they can handle it?
You would hope a lot. I guess it depends on the guys that do play tournament golf and they play different courses more often, or if it's a club guy or a league guy that plays the same place every week. There's not a lot of management going into figuring out what you're going to do on a specific course in that regards. But when you start talking course management, if they've played the golf course a lot and they're not very good at a 40-yard shot, but they hit the ball 250 yards on a 300-yard hole, they're going to be right there in their 40-yard.
Right. They're putting themselves in a bad spot.
Course management would say, and I would say play the hole backwards in your head. Know what you want to do going into the green. I mean, obviously you still got to hit it in the fairway, but if it's a 400-yard hole and I hit it, or bad example, but just for on the tour guys would be in that regards, but guys that don't quite hit it that far. If it's a 310-yard hole and you don't want to have a 40-yard shot, you think back in your head, if it's 310 yards and I don't mind a 20-yard pitch shot, I can get it close to the green. I'm going to hit a driver, but if I can't, I'm certainly not going to put myself in that 50-yard range.
Right. You take the 200-yard shot.
You take the 200-yard shot and then play it in from there. Same breath. Perfect example is our first hole here. It's a 350-yard hole, but it plays a little bit shorter because the fairways are firm in that regard. And we do hole location sheets every day, so you can get a sheet that tells you where the flag's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that flag's on the front of the green, you don't want to be 40 yards away from the green because you won't be able to stop it. Right?
Yeah.
You look at the sheet, and if it's in the back, then 40 yards is no problem because you got a lot of green to work with. So, if you're familiar with the course or doing course management in that regards, it's always, aim till the if the pin's a few yards off the right, that tells me that there's a lot of room to the left. Don't aim right. Right. So the management would be in that regards is to maximizing your abilities and avoiding the situations that you're uncomfortable with. It's
That's interesting. I really like that. I've never heard that or thought of that, to play it backwards in your head. Start with what you want your approach shot to be, then game plan from there what you're going to do off the tee. I like that a lot. What do you think? There's something that amateurs put too much stock into or pay too much attention to that it's not as important, or that maybe the better guys, they're not thinking about as much, and then what's something that they probably should be diverting their focus towards?
Right. As we talked about earlier, would be distance. Don't go changing your swing to chase it. There's nothing wrong with putting in some stuff and trying to, it depends on how seriously you're taking this game. If you're willing to go to the gym to try and strengthen up, it should come naturally, but not at the expense of control. But don't go chasing it, because if you hit the ball relatively straight and 250 yards, you could probably hit it 290. But if you're all of a sudden hitting it crooked, that's the kind of thing that it's just not worth it. Right?
Yeah.
Length is good, and especially depending on the courses you play. Different ages, different abilities, skill levels. There's 5 sets of tee for a reason. Right.
Well, I know a lot of guys too that can hit it a mile, but there's zero control. So then it's a mile in the woods, and you have no chance of finding it. So last couple questions for you. For a guy that's 15 handicap trying to get to single digits, what's the number one thing that he should be focused on, or what's going to bring that score down the quickest? And then for a guy that's just trying to break 90, where
honestly, the same. The answer is going to be the same for both, to an extent. Obviously, go to the range, figure out your swing. And I'm not saying you need to go get lessons. There's a lot of YouTube stuff too. Lessons would help. If you don't understand what, where, and why, golf's a lot of opposites in regards to hitting the ball right to left. You have to swing right to hit it left.
Right.
You have to swing left to hit it right. So that if you don't quite understand it, it is physics, but if you don't understand that part of the game, understanding what you're doing is it'll help a lot in that regards. But also, it's the management stuff, and I've asked a lot of the guys that I teach. It's like, if you shot 92, I'll look at you and I'll say, could you erase 5? Yeah, I could erase 8. I said, why? Did you do something stupid?
Right.
Did you hit it to 40 yards that you don't like and then blade it over the green? Okay, on a par 5, if you can't get to the green and you go for the green and it puts you in that 40 yard, puts you in no man's land for your game, why didn't you just lay it back to 100 yards?
Right.
Probably could have erased 2 or 3.
Right.
It's little things like that. It's erasing the stupidity. We're all we even even the top guys can look at it. You know, they just every once in a while they just make a bad choice.
Yeah.
And
Well, I know I was telling a coworker of mine the other day, I was like, it's funny when I go back and look at holes and like, you know, probably only need a driver on 5 of them, but it's just so wired in my brain when I step up to a tee. If it's not a par 3, it's driver, like no matter what, you know. And then it's like, obviously, anytime you have a driver in your hand, well, I want this ball to go as far as I can possibly hit it, no matter what the second shot it leaves me, you know. Right. So
there's 2 schools: bomb and gouge. You know.
Yeah.
You know, hit it as close to the green as you can and gouge it out of the rough kind of thing. Or, you know, some courses are more demanding in regards to being in the fairway if the rough is too, you know, too penal in that regard. But just if you, and I've said, you know, probably said this a lot, if you think you can, don't. If you know you can,
then you go
do.
Yeah.
Right. There's, I think, you know, I think I really learned how the day I learned that I knew or could play this game at a decent level was the day I figured out that I didn't have to hit it in the fairway and onto the green in 2 shots to make par.
Right.
You can hit it behind a tree. You can pitch it out to 100 yards and still get it up and down.
Right. Yeah.
Once you jump that hurdle where you realize that you don't have to be perfect and it doesn't have to be in the fairway on the green too,
right.
kind of thing. Obviously, you need to be able to do that to make birdies, but there's, you know, it's relative. You know, the 110 guys came down to 100 to 90. There's all those little things that you can do. You know, if you make a double bogey because you hit it in the water, you know, by making a bad decision or trying to hit the hero shot, you could have erased one by hitting it over here and then hitting it over there instead of trying the impossible shot.
So would you say that's probably like, you know, like I said, it's the mental game more important on the mental side or the physical side? You know, even if you can hit that shot, but you only hit that good shot 1 out of every 5 times, you know, like what's bringing the scores down more, you know, like putting the practice in, getting those reps to where it's like, oh, I'm just a better player, or understanding the game better?
Combination of both in that regard. Yeah. I mean, and there's two different kinds of people. I get more benefits out of playing holes of golf than I do hitting range balls. But that's me. That's not everybody. There are other guys that there's other guys that do nothing but hit range balls, and then they can go out onto the golf course and they get the benefits from hitting more practice shots. So figuring out what's best for you in that regard. I need reps.
I was gonna say, so you're indifferent on that. I know that I said the last question, but this was something I wanted to mention because I'm one of those people. I can go to the course with the full intention of like, I'm gonna get a good range practice session in. Then I find out there's a tee time available. I'm gonna play. I love to play golf. I'm gonna get out there on the course. You get better practice from the range, or you know, because so my boss and I, we joke about this a lot. He's a PGA pro as well, and you know, he's like, this is the only sport where your warm up has nothing to do with the game you're playing. Correct. Because you know, it's like if you were trying to play a basketball game, you went on the sideline and shot no goal for a little while. Right. You know, it's like we're just hitting balls, but you don't get to see holes or any kind of like practice warm up. So better to just get out there on the course and learn the game that way, or better to just hit balls down a 300-yard field and see how far they go. You know?
Combination of both, because you learn your swing on the range. You don't learn your swing on the golf course. So you definitely need to practice. You need to hit balls on the range where you're not tied to result.
Right.
That's where you'll learn your swing and what kind of what you need to do. Again, to make the ball pass through the window you want it to pass through, but in that regards, don't think that I'm going to play once a week and I'm going to hit balls 6 days a week and then I'm only going to play it one day. I mean, some guys can do it. You need to figure out what's best.
Right.
You'll need to figure out what's best for you in that regard. But I don't get as much enjoyment out of hitting range balls as I do playing.
Yeah.
So
That's
I get that. But if you do nothing but play and never practice, don't expect to ever get better.
Yeah.
There are some guys that can, and there are some guys that will. There are other guys because you need the time on the range to have no expectations.
Right. You're working on you learning.
Correct. Right. Because when you go out and if you have expectations of shooting even par, yet you never put in the time on the range or the putting green or the chipping green to learn how to.
Right. So you got to compartmentalize this.
There's your routine.
Yeah, learn your swing on the range, learn the game on the course.
Correct.
You know. Well, that's all perfect, Chad. I really appreciate you. That's all I've got for you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
So that concludes my interview with Chad Ammer. I really appreciate him and Makatiwa Country Club. It was an honor to be able to sit there and talk with him and just pick his brain a little bit about the game and try to figure out how to get better at golf. My favorite part about the second half of the interview was his thoughts on how to play a hole smarter and really game plan for the course and playing the hole basically backwards in your head. I never thought of that. Never has anybody mentioned anything about that, to kind of pick and choose your shots. Like he was saying, if you're terrible at the 40-yard pitch shot and you're on a 300-yard hole and you hit it, you just hit your drive 255, 260, whatever, and you leave yourself at that 40-yard shot, well, you just put yourself in a bad spot. So it's look at the green, look at the distance of the hole, pick out where you want your approach shot to be. What approach shot is going to give you the best chances of getting on that green in two, and then decide what your tee shot's going to be from there. Should you leave yourself with that 40 yards in, or should you leave yourself more with 85 yards so you can have a little bit more of a full swing with your lob wedge, whatever works best for you. So that was super interesting to me. I'm definitely going to take that into plan for my next round. I'm going to take a lot of the things that Chad said, probably all of them. I'm going to kind of keep watching that video over and see what I can incorporate into my own game and see how it helps my scores. Let me know in the comments what you thought about what Chad had to say. Let me know your strategies and what helped you shoot better scores. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought about the video and what I can do to make these videos better for you. And so we will see you next time right here on The Golfer's Journey.